none other than Carmen Policy, the president and CEO of the 49ers from 1991 to 1997, has been part of the organization since 1981 all the way up until the late 90s and was responsible in large part for 4 Lombardi trophies here in the Bay Area. He joins us on the UMA guest line. Carmen, we really appreciate your time. Greg Silver, Larry Kruger, hanging out with you. How's it going today?
Going very well, Greg and Larry, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And Micah Parsons, big move yesterday, and we'll get to your son and his role with Green Bay in just a moment. But it's kind of a full circle moment, I have to imagine, where a lot of comparisons to Charles Haley, that deal getting traded to another NFC team that then became competitive and won a couple of Super Bowls. Just take me back to 1992 and the decision that the organization had to ultimately part ways with the future Hall of Famer in Charles Haley. It was not a secret that he would go to extreme measures to express his displeasure at times. But when you have a player of that talent, you know, you're willing to tolerate it to some degree. And ultimately, you decide to deal him to Dallas.
Well, it was a very, very difficult time. And, you know, the problem really became unmanageable when violence started entering the scene. And unfortunately, Charles needed help. And when our coach attempted to direct him in the right direction, he actually took it as an insult and the thought that he was saying, "You're not mentally fit," and suggesting that you don't belong on the 49ers because you're just not mentally fit to be here. And he just took that personal insult that he created in his own mind, and he became really beyond uncontrollable. He became dangerous. And as a matter of fact, even though after the trade, he found an environment in Dallas that was more acceptable to him and easier for him to function in, there were a lot of problems in Dallas after he went there, and a lot of serious issues after the first year or two. And you know, we were a buttoned up group, the 49ers. We weren't all that loosey goosey, and you know, we were kind of watching out for people, but we did things a certain way, and it was just so bad that there was no choice. We had to trade him or cut him, and we didn't dare cut him because then we have no control over where he goes, and you get nothing for him. And the only other party I got interested in the whole deal was Minnesota, and the only thing they would do is a 5th round pick that might develop into a 4th. And that was the most they would give because they thought they might have to cut him if they couldn't handle it. And of course, give them credit, in came Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson on the phone at the same time. And they offered a 2nd round pick and a 4th. And when our personnel people and our coaching staff heard that, to them, there was no choice. We had to take what was on the table as opposed to just giving them away. And that really, you have no idea how bad everybody felt that we had to do that, and that it actually worked. It actually had to be done in the way it was because we hated losing Charles.
Charles, Carmen, by the way, great to talk to you again. Awesome to have you here today. And, you know, Bill Walsh, Charles Haley was was a guy that Bill Walsh fell in love with. And I can remember seeing the video of Walsh saying to to the cameras, "Hey, I told our scouting staff, this is Charles Haley," in that bright yellow helmet that he wore at James Madison, this is Charles Haley, and he is going to be our defensive end next year. And so Bill was clearly his advocate when he entered the organization. How much do you think that Bill not being there led to Charles's unraveling?
I do think Bill would have handled it differently, but I also think that problems that developed around some of the players, like Charles, became part of the problem for Bill not being able to continue after the 1988 Super Bowl. He just he was worn out,
Yeah.
and the bill that recruited and brought Charles to his peak was not the bill that was available if he wanted to return in 1989. It just but he would have definitely handled it differently. Another thing that I don't think people realize that disrupted things for Charles, disrupted things greatly, was Plan B and Ronnie Lott being on Plan B and then going to the Raiders. I think that disoriented Charles, and not only did it disorient Charles, I think Ronnie was a key factor in keeping Charles balanced. When I say balanced, I'm talking about for Charles. It may not be balanced for others, but Ronnie was that semblance of control of some sort that offered Charles the opportunity to actually function as a team member. And I think every bit as much as the miscue and misunderstanding that Charles brought out of how the coaching staff was trying to help him was the fact that Ronnie wasn't there, Ronnie Lott. And that doesn't come out very often, but I feel strongly about that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all that. And we got Carmen Policy here on the UMA guest line joining us, 49ers president and CEO for 7 years in the 90s. I appreciate you laying out the offers that were on the table when we went back to Charles Haley, right? Dallas, Minnesota, Cowboys made the far more competitive offer. With Micah Parsons getting traded yesterday, there was a lot of talk of why would Dallas deal him to another competitive borderline arch rival within their own conference? And at the time, was there a lot of reluctance to trading Charles Haley to Dallas, even though that was clearly the best package you would get in return?
Yes, there was, because don't forget, at the time, we were still on top. I mean, Dallas wasn't Dallas, and they were an up-and-comer, and everybody recognized, okay, they've got Troy Aikman. Okay, they have Michael Irving. Okay, they have Emmitt Smith. Now help me out, guys. 92. They got Emmitt Smith in 91, did they? But anyway, he was there on the team when we traded, if I'm not mistaken.
90.
He was there on the team. Yeah. Okay. So he was there on the team. So we saw them emerging as a real contender, no question about it. And we were of the same frame of mind. That turning them over to Dallas is going to make Dallas a better team. But the other hand is here's what you have to remember. He could not remain a 49er. And what were the choices? The choices were a trade or to cut the player. If you cut the player, then you free him up to go anywhere he wants to go. And you know that a team like Dallas would have been out there after him, and they probably would have scooped them up, and the 49ers would have nothing to show for it. So you really couldn't just cut him. On the other hand, we were hamstrung because all of his antics, not all of them, but some of his antics were pretty well known, and no one was willing to offer anything except for Minnesota, and even that was kind of a situation that I drummed up with the then general manager, but so there was no choice in our opinion, because he could not stay on the team. He had to be moved, and the second round pick and the fourth that seemed like the likely best we could do.
Carmen Policy with us on the Yuma guest line. Carmen, so much of the antics of Haley back in those days are almost football lore. How many of those stories are true? How many of them are fabricated? How many of them are exaggerated? Did you witness any of these? Was there anything that you witnessed where you're like, you know what? I know I'm not a dictator here. We make group decisions, but I've seen what I need to see. Did you get to a point where you were like, that's it. I've witnessed this and I can't unsee this?
I have. I witnessed a good deal of it, and I witnessed him after some violence in the locker room, smashing glass and bleeding on the floor, and not letting anyone near him to treat him. And I was there in the aftermath of some of the other stuff that occurred within the building, downstairs, amongst the coaching staff and amongst some other players, and crudeness that was just unspeakable. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you gentlemen are watching the Netflix docu-series.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, on the American team. Yeah. When they interviewed Charles, he said, a lot of really bad stuff is coming out about me out of San Francisco, and it talks about stuff I did and stuff I said and stuff I was always accused of being responsible for. He says about 95% of that is true. Okay, so I would say, that's Charles. He was being honest.
Right.
I would say that whatever you've heard is true, but there's a lot that you haven't heard.
All right, so can we confirm or deny a possible urination on a desk following a trade?
That was nothing. That was nothing compared to some of the stuff.
Wow.
Nothing compared to some of the stuff.
Carmen, I got to ask
you. It's sad. It's
Yeah.
really sad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Charles has gotten help since. I mean, heck, he's in the Cowboy Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Niner Ring of, he's in the Cowboy Ring of Honor, the Niner Hall of Fame. He's made amends and moved on, and we all have. But I mean, this is a story that happened, and we're talking about it because of the trade of Parsons to Green Bay and the upheaval in Dallas. Back to your guys' decision making back then. I mean, the Niners had some heavyweights in the. Who was the brass? Who was the decision makers? Do you remember sitting around like a conference room there at the facility when you're making the ultimate decision? I mean, was it you, Seifert, McVay, Dwight Clark? I mean, who was in the Niner decision making, triumvirate or whatever back then?
Well, first of all, Eddie DeBartolo was sick about it. I mean, the only person he was more sick about, or shall we say, parting with, was Joe Montana, and another party was Ronnie Lott. But we didn't think we were parting with Ronnie. We thought that he would go on Plan B to give us cover for a period of time till we brought him back. But when we lost him, we all said to ourselves, "Oh darn! That's not what we intended." Whereas the other, these trades we were party to, of course. So Eddie sat back. He says, "I got to let you." I told him, I says, well, "It's not sustainable, Eddie. It cannot go on. It cannot continue." I said, "So we only have these other options available." And he says, "All right, I'm leaving it up to you to make the best decision for the franchise." So, and that's where we left it. And we had John McVay, we had Dwight Clark, we had Vinny Serrato, we had the head of scouting, all the coaches, especially the defensive coaches, and we had some good defensive coaches there that who were. One of them was kind of like tried to be a bit of a father to Charles as well. They all agreed, we hate losing him. We hate losing this talent, but we have no choice. And they all agreed that you just can't cut him. You better get something for him, because at least then you're getting something for him. Otherwise, you have no control of where he goes, and he'll wind up in somebody like Dallas, or even maybe even worse, somebody in our division's hands. And so, after a while, it became, once the decision was made that it wasn't sustainable within the organization, then it was only a matter of applying the options and take the best option available.
Last couple minutes here with Carmen Policy, and another trade that you had to make the year later in 1993 that was a very difficult one was trading Joe Montana. And I just, it worked out okay, right? Getting Steve Young, another Hall of Famer, win another Super Bowl. But, at the time and even into today, it's very clear what Joe Montana still means to the Bay Area and taking a team that had never won at that level and taking them to these unimaginable heights. I mean, what was that like when you account for trading the player and the person, Joe, but also the icon and what he meant to this franchise in this city?
Well, the irony of that situation is, in some ways, it was so much harder uh, uh, for us to deal with the Joe Montana situation because of what you just said. He was loved. He was an icon. He meant so much to the team and delivered so much glory and accomplishment to the team. And the situation was almost unimaginable that you'd see Joe Montana in a uniform other than the 49er uniform. However, and by the way, it wasn't like Joe Montana was, demanding a trade and wanting out because of a contract situation or because of us not wanting him or him not loving San Francisco. So in that regard, that made it really, really tough. On the other hand, we had come to a point within the organization's structure and system where we could no longer keep Joe Montana and Steve Young. It was not, again, sustainable for a couple of reasons, one of which was the salary cap and where we were with both Steve and Joe's contracts, and where we would have to be with Steve if we were going to continue starting him. And then again, we were looking at a situation with Joe's health. Don't forget, we had the benefit of some very, very serious and top-notch medical teams telling us, you can have him play next year. You can probably, if you nurse him, get 12 games out of him for the regular season, and then pray to God that he's healthy for the playoffs. And then who knows, he could win a Super Bowl maybe for you, or he may not even show up for the playoffs. That was the defined medical opinion. And then after next year, it's kind of over. And so we knew, again, the responsible path we had to take for the future of the franchise. And in that regard, it made it easier to follow the logical and I'll even say more disciplined path than we had to follow with the extreme conduct of Charles pushing us into what we had to do but didn't want to do. And believe me, if you think I don't know of any time in my life when I went through more controversy in terms of negativity and so forth than during the Montana trade. And we'd go to, we were always welcome at any restaurant in the Bay Area. When I started going to some of the restaurants during that period when it was going to be trading Joe Montana. Oh, they said, well, we're full tonight, Mr. Policy, but maybe if you want to sit at the bar. Okay. Then I had to worry about, are they spitting in my food? And it was incredible. And it comes with the territory, I know, but there was two different situations. So we were part and parcel of what was happening with Joe. We were forced into what happened with Charles.
Carmen, gosh, it's so awesome to talk to you. And the audiences, I'm sure there are people sitting in their car. I'm not going to get out of the car right now. I'm listening to Carmen Policy. I got to ask you, because you had a very full football life. I mean, you had a hand in the Niners, every one of their championships, 81, 84, 88, 89. But I got to think 94, because of the Haley trade and because you were the architect in a lot of ways of the 94 49ers, the last Super Bowl championship 49er team that actually, won it all, Lombardi #5. And I always wanted to ask you this. How important was 94? And that was the dawning of free agency, was the beginning. the Niners benefited by Eddie's generosity that was well documented in the 80s and 90s. Lots of people everybody wanted to be a Niner. But you got it done, and you got all these guys, and you assembled an amazing cast with Dion and Ricky Jackson and Dent and Plummer and Norton, and just an awesome team. But I know you've had a great relationship with Mr. D for a long, long time, but did you need that 94 Super Bowl to achieve a different level in Eddie's eyes? I mean, how important was 94 for you and Eddie's relationship, for, as far as how he accepted you post Haley trade, and obviously you were the creator of the 94 team.
It's amazing that you asked that question. 94 was total redemption. And if you have the time, I'll try laying it out as quickly as I can for you.
Sure.
But
we'll make the time.
In 93, at the NFC Championship game in Dallas, when Dallas beat us the second time in the conference championship game, Eddie and I are walking to the elevator to go down to the locker room, just the two of us. And we got on the elevator, and they held the elevator for us, and we were alone in the elevator. And he said, "We cannot let this happen again." And that's all he said. But he said it in a way that you knew that he was right. In other words, this franchise and all of the greatness that came with it can be so tarnished if we don't right it, if we don't get back to the Super Bowl, if we don't find a way to beat these Cowboys. And that spurred everything on. And with the salary cap coming, we had to fight that to keep our veteran nucleus of a team together. We managed to do that. We went out and we did everything we could. We structured contracts, brought in free agents. Ultimately, thank God that Dion made the best business decision of his life, and he came with us. And we gave him all the flexibility in the world he needed. He could play baseball until his team was no longer eligible for playoffs. And we prayed that he would lose every baseball game in September. Okay, prayed. And he did. So we were able to get him in October. And then think about it. All these great players we had on our team, and Steve Young, there he was fighting this godlike image of Joe Montana, which was an image Joe deserved, but Steve had to fight it as he's trying to become the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. Mm-hmm. And being able to say, okay, Jerry Rice, okay, Steve, okay, all of you great players who are here that we've assembled, let's go get it. And to win it and to beat Dallas, it just doesn't get better than that in life. It just doesn't. And keep in mind, first time ever that a franchise, okay, not only wins Super Bowls, but wins Super Bowls in different eras, wins Super Bowls under different structures in which the league was operating, single owner, but different head coaches and different starting quarterbacks. So that spoke to Eddie and his organization. So it truly was. I hate to say it, but God forbid that we would have had to try to exist without having that 94 Super Bowl inside the trophy case.
That's beautifully told by you, and this was a real treat to have you on today, Carmen. We'll have to do this again because I feel like if it weren't for clock restrictions and other guests and, I don't know, attempting to do the job that we signed contracts for, we just want to keep you for the next couple hours anyway. But I know you got places to be anyway, and really appreciate your time. Look, there's a massive chapter of Bay Area sports history and of football history that does not exist without a lot of your contributions. So we're grateful that we got to take a slice of that for our airwaves today, and we'll certainly have you on again. This will not be the last time.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, very much, and good luck to the Niners. I'm feeling a lot better about this season start than last year, really.
Yeah, I would hope
think we
so.
all are.
I don't want another 6 and 11 to be talking about here. So
Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.
he is Carmen Policy. Again, 49ers president and CEO from 1991 to 1997, was in the organization a decade before that and got a whole bunch of stories. Krug, that was fantastic. Let's pivot